Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to this month's Business Watch meeting. We are recording it just because we share these on the Chamber website and we also email them out. So I just always like to give that warning so that people know they don't we don't any hot mic issues or awkward noises, whatever. So just I like to always preface that. So pretty excited. This is a continuation on what we've been doing this year in regards to how to help businesses have more access to resources and also to be partners in working together as we try to improve the quality of customer experience issues that we are facing, not just in Pittsburgh, but East County and statewide. So last month we had our district attorney, Diana Beckton, who is actually going to be joining us tonight for our mixer at 5 p.m. at John Buckley Square. So you'll want to check that out. And we talked a lot about the district attorney's office and their role in dealing with shoplifting, what some people call quality of life crimes, and also with the struggles that we face with the homeless population. So today we have members of the core team with us, and we'll allow them to introduce themselves and their role. But I want to give everybody an opportunity as we're doing our Hollywood Squares here to go ahead and introduce themselves. And I'm going to go ahead and start with our board president, Nancy Hairsine.
Hi, good afternoon, Nancy Hairsine, board president. As Wolfgang mentioned, I'm also a certified financial planner and investment advisor.
All right, next, Tara.
Tara Chapman. I am the member relations coordinator for the chamber.
Leanne.
Leanne Lorenzo. I'm director of operations and communications for the chamber.
Bonnie.
Hi, Bonnie Casey, transportation and facilities manager for St. Vincent de Paul on Gladstone.
Awesome. And Mr. Berger.
Berger, Pittsburgh Town Center.
All right. And Mr. Seamus from Pittsburgh Police Department. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. Thank you for having me here today. Rob Seamus. I'm a lieutenant with the police department, and I've been with the city of Pittsburgh for 27 years, and I currently oversee our homeless outreach team, amongst a few other things.
Awesome. And we are expecting somebody from the county. When they hop on, we'll go ahead and introduce them. But at the moment, what we wanted to do today is, we talked about the shoplifting last month, and one of the topics that comes up amongst not only this group, but that we hear as a chamber from our businesses are dealing with unhoused residents and the whole spectrum of challenges that come with that and how it specifically is impacting businesses from anywhere from loitering to vandalism, trash, etc. There's a lot of challenges that come up with, and I know that a lot of businesses, what's being done, what can be done, why isn't the city doing this, and the list goes on and on and on. And in previous meetings, we've talked about some things that businesses can do to help with these challenges, and we've talked with the mayor one month, and like I said, last month we talked with our district attorney, but we wanted to talk specifically today with the team that is working day after day, helping, I was going to say in the trenches, but sometimes it literally is in the trenches, but day after day, trying to tackle this situation. And as we were talking with Lieutenant Seamus before the meeting started, trying to find solutions, because playing whack-a-mole is not a solution, and just shifting people all over the place. So with that, I want to go ahead and turn it over to Lieutenant Seamus to just talk a little bit about, what is the department doing currently, and then we can get into kind of a question and answer period about what can businesses do. And then I don't have any anticipation that we're going to come up with the solution today, but just starting that dialogue and what can be done. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Lieutenant Seamus.
All right. Well, thank you. First and foremost, kind of what we're doing here at the police department. Unfortunately, being homeless or unhoused is not necessarily a police responsibility, although the quality of life of sometimes how it impacts businesses and residents, it becomes a police activity. So we've taken an approach to where we actually have a 2-officer team. We actually have an officer and a sergeant assigned at this point. And they're our homeless outreach team. Our primary goal is to help the people that are in our community that are unhoused. We have a variety of resources that we can offer, both temporary and a little longer term. Everything from bottled water to socks to some clothing items, food cards, some temporary stays at a local motel, and so forth. And this is very beneficial for people who need immediate need in that time frame. We work closely with the county court team, which is the county health services outreach team, which their primary function and goal is to work to get unhoused residents housed, people living on the street. They have the ability to move people to shelters, get them involved in programs, and get them back on track to where they need to be. Unfortunately, as we have all lived through the past year and a half, COVID has put certain restrictions at many different levels of what we can and can't do and the resources that are available. You know, one of the largest impacts are all the county shelters were shut. So there were not places to have people go. So if somebody was living on the streets, having problems, there wasn't a large scale facility necessarily that they could go to, because the county previously had commingling type facilities where people lived in dorm style living and so forth. And with COVID, that wasn't an option. That couldn't happen. The state and county chose the site of Motel 6 to implement their housing program, which the city did not have a lot of knowledge about. The county came in and took over the property. We learned actually after they had acquired it and moved forward, and used and currently uses the site as a housing facility for the unhoused in the county. This was a prime site that the county picked because I believe there's 170-ish rooms where they could house people, keep people separated due to COVID concerns, and offer services, case management, and so forth. So one of our primary jobs that we continue to do is working with the county to try to make sure that they're good residents of our city, and we'll work together to try to address any problems that may come about because of this facility being within our geographical boundaries. So what does that look like day to day for what our guys do? They will respond to chronic transient complaints, encampments, and so forth. We are bound by legal restrictions. If there's an encampment on private property, we have to work with the property owners, and sometimes that's done through code enforcement to get those camps abated and to move off of private property. If it's on city or public property, then we have to go through an abatement process. And part of that process is we have to give them notice. We have to legally provide them a place to stay. We can't just kick them off of public land. We have to give them housing, temporarily at least, for the time that we're abating the property. We have to give them the opportunity to take personal property. And if they leave their personal property, then we have to collect their personal property and store it for up to 90 days. So there are some tremendous challenges as that comes together. There are a few caveats if things are soiled or biohazards and so forth that we can do cleanups or people discard and leave property. But it's a negotiation and cooperation. For a majority of the people that we deal with, we get a certain level of cooperation. But there are those within our community that suffer from mental illness to some level, substance abuse, a multitude of things that cause some of the greatest problems. And I think those are probably a lot of the people that probably cause problems in the shopping centers with the erratic behavior, vandalism, theft, and so forth. So each one of those situations is very unique. I can tell you from working in this position for minimally the past 2 years, there's no two situations the same. Why people end up homeless, what keeps them homeless, and how to resolve each case is a challenge. We've had a lot of successes, and we've been able to get a lot of people off the street and into programs, into transitional housing. Sometimes it's identifying a family member that may be out of the area, even out of the state. And we'll work with CORE and try to get funding to get them back to where they're originally from, where they have a family support unit. But we have others. Like I spent several hours this morning walking the canal on Pittsburgh-Antioch Highway, trying to get that cleaned. People don't have a place to go. And that's a larger problem. That's not just a Pittsburgh problem. It's not a Contra Costa problem. It's a statewide problem. And I think one of the biggest challenges is figure out how we can address that as a whole of what we can do for people to help them break this cycle of being on the streets.
When a business, a shopping center, a standalone building, whatever it is, one of the things that we heard is that the unhoused residents now are more aggressive than before. Putting yourself in a business owner's set of shoes, what are maybe like 2 or 3 best practices or strategies that a business could implement to maybe make themselves not as big a target?
Well, again, I think that it depends on the type of business. The unfortunate thing here is, and this is a balancing act, because most people in our community, business owners, residents, they have good hearts and they want to help people. And unfortunately, sometimes helping people has a negative reaction to where, we'll see a lot of times like restaurants, or sandwich shops or whatever, they'll give leftover sandwiches to the homeless and they'll put it out for the homeless to come. Well, the problem is it attracts more people and then they don't leave, and negative traits comes along with it and so forth. So, we always suggest that whether it be a business or a private party, to find, nonprofits or groups within our community that can distribute goods, food, and so forth to prevent, your business, your home, your street from becoming, the new place amongst the unhoused community to say, hey, that's where we go if we want to get free sandwiches every day at noon. Because they do. People communicate and they go where resources are. We will occasionally see this where people, out of the goodness of their heart, and I can't fault them because I know they want to help people, but they'll stop and they'll drop bags of clothing off. And to somebody that they see sleeping on the side of the road or something along those lines. Unfortunately, they open the bags, they take 1 or 2 pieces of clothing, and then the rest becomes trash and debris that either the city has to pick up, the business owners have to pick up, and we have problems. So as much as we want to help people, and it's within our hearts to help people, just be aware that there could be a negative connotation. So
I don't put Bonnie on the spot here, and if you don't have an answer, Bonnie, that's totally fine. But being a representative from St. Vincent de Paul, is your organization an organization that maybe businesses could align themselves with, since I believe you provide services to the unhoused, correct?
We do, yes. We have our dining room that feeds 7 days a week. We also provide clothing. If they come in off the street and they need clothing, we'll give them that, the blankets. hygiene. We have snacks. They come every day for snacks.
Okay, so to go along with Lieutenant Seamus, for those that are watching, that rather than using the goodness of your heart and potentially creating a situation that has some unintended consequences, partnering up with an organization like St. Vincent de Paul, that this is their mission, this is what they do, might create better results. Lieutenant Seamus, are there other organizations in town that you are aware of that are more situated to help the homeless rather than individuals just trying to do random acts of kindness that might provide better results?
There are, I don't have a list in front of me, but a lot of the churches have outreach programs. The faith-based community has been really good with trying to help. St. Vincent de Paul is a great resource. They have a lot of outreach to a lot of people in our communities. So there's a magnitude of different groups. So I think one of the easiest ways is that the county has lists of nonprofits that typically work with it, and you can usually find that through the county website. Or if you have any questions, the county human health services typically, and specifically through CORE. It's a shame CORE's not here, because I think CORE has probably more of a laundry list of the different agencies, specific agencies, and where to contact them.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so one recommendation is, rather than trying to do your own thing as an individual, as a business, partner with an organization that is set up for this and can facilitate helping people not only at a larger level, but in a way that doesn't always have these unintended negative consequences. What about businesses that deal with, and they aren't always homeless either, but those that are a little bit more aggressive, or that want to commit vandalism to buildings? Are there strategies that you've seen that can help improve that, or is it just call dispatch and get officers to help?
Yeah, well, both. We would always like to say, if somebody's acting aggressively or makes you feel uncomfortable, by no means, approach or try to deal with them. Our main goal is to avoid any type of a conflict or any type of a violent situation. So, ultimately, that's where we need to be involved. Sometimes it may take a little bit of time, and I know the frustration gets bad because there's somebody that's there all the time. Most of the shopping centers, or a lot of the shopping centers, do have some private patrol. The key is to stay on things early and not let things grow. Focusing on things like, if you have trash bins in the back, make sure that the trash service is done routinely, that things aren't piling up, which draws people to gather, items to build encampments or to go through trash or whatever. Safeguard yourself. Theft can be a tremendous problem, with people walking in and walking out. So trying to safeguard your business as best as possible while still making it appealing for the customer to walk in, but to discourage the easy grab and run and so forth like that. Basic stuff like that, trying to put, more valuable items towards the back of the store to where you have some time to try to intervene before it gets to that point. Those are some basic, just safety measures.
Are there any, I know we have Mr. Berger on the call, and he owns a shopping center, in regards to like landscape or things like that, that I know, like one thing I know is, keeping the trees trimmed up high so that's not they can hide in the boughs. Are there any other things that can be physically done to a property that, if somebody's looking, do I go to this property or that property, that yours isn't selected?
Yeah, we do see trees tend to draw people to camp under and to sit. I would strongly recommend, if you have any input on landscape, to stay away from rocks, especially river rocks. There are those that struggle with whether it be mental illness or substance abuse or being able to control their tempers. And unfortunately, we've seen several occasions where people will just pick up the first thing that they can find. And if there's a bed of river rocks, they'll use river rocks to break windows at night. you know, and so forth like that. So we want to try to stay away from that. But again, you know, each individual property has its own unique look and feel. And, you know, I would suggest through our outreach team, you know, if you're responsible or if you had concerns about a specific property or whatever of the business owner in town, we'll gladly come on out. We'll do a site survey. We'll talk to you about options. Because there's not a general, you know, turnkey fix for every property. And, you know, taking everything into effect with cost effectiveness, you know, how well it's going to work, how well it will deter things. Each site's a little bit different, but we'll more than be happy to come on out, spend that time. And that's the longitude that we've had with this team is I can send a couple of the officers out that deal with people on a daily basis with these situations, and they'll do a site survey. They can give suggestions. Some of it may be feasible financially or physically. Some of it may be very easy fixes. Some of it could be something as simple as, you know, securing a water faucet so people can't take water from the side of a building and fill up 5-gallon containers, or whether it be lighting or, you know, trimming trees. There's a whole magnitude of different things. So, but again, we'll gladly walk through a property with somebody and talk about solutions and specific problems that we're having for each one. Be glad to do that.
And if a business was interested in that, would they call dispatch to get that set up, or is there a direct number that they should call to set that up?
You know, they can call me. My number is 925-252-4019. And then, you know, we can kind of talk, we can find out what the needs are. And then I can defer people to Sergeant Haas and Officer Kessler, who are the actual officers that are out there on a daily basis, and they would be the ones doing the site surveys. So,
I have a question.
yes, sir.
Excuse me. One of the biggest problems that we have at the Pittsburgh Town Center is the repeat offenders. Individuals that have been escorted off. I spend a lot of money on security, asking them to leave. They leave and then they come back. There's also a form that security fills out, basically that cites private property, that you're no longer allowed on this private property. The reason you've cited it, everybody knows. Number one, they beg for change and scare the women customers. The number two, sometimes will go into some of the stores and steal. The other thing is that they also make dirty. In other words, you know, if they're eating something, they don't find the trash can, they dump it in the parking lot or on the sidewalk and so forth. I'm just wondering if has been a effort to get repeat offenders. I know if I was to ask my security officer to give you a list of people that were continually asked to leave, and I know Bob across the street at Encino would also do that. How far do we have to go before these people actually will not come back, or is that just an unending story? Because I think there's probably 10, 11, maybe that are real bad offenders, that if something could be done, it would really improve the problems that I cited.
No, I completely agree with you. So let me tell you from our side of the house, what we can legally do. There's two different options. It sounds like the letter that you're referring to is a trespass warning.
Right.
You've been trespassed from the area and you're gone.
Yeah.
Once somebody has been warned that they can't re-enter the property, there is the ability, if they re-enter, that they can be placed under citizen's arrest for trespassing. Now, I'm not gonna candy coat it. The reality is that means that at best you get a ride down to our police department, you get your fingerprints taken, and you get a ticket, and you're back on the street. And then it has to go through the court system, and I think that's, you know, one of the problems. You know, I don't advocate. I'm not a big advocator for everybody needs to go to jail and all that. I'm far from it. but there also has to be some quality of life issues, because there are certain people in the community that, you know, the 1 or 2% that cause quality of life issues for the other 98%. And we could make our community a much better place. We used to, well, not us personally, but we would have a community prosecutor, which, you know, a simple trespass charge, our DA's office typically, and I don't want to say every case is the same, would not look at that necessarily as a criminal offense that they're going to go through. With community prosecutors and so forth, we would have our ability to say, hey, look, you know, John Smith has caused all these problems at the town center. We need you to move forward on this gentleman, and they would move forward. Unfortunately, right now, that's not always necessarily the case. That's not an excuse on our behalf. We can still arrest people. We can arrest them multiple times. We can try to get them shipped over to Martinez. Typically, the jail will not accept a misdemeanor trespass charge as something that gets them to Martinez. So we try to find other solutions. You know, one of the avenues is, you know, if we can document that there's been problems over and over and over, especially through a security system, a security service, there's always the ability that you can present it in front of a judge and get a restraining order. You know, we always think of restraining orders through domestic violence situations and so forth, but you can also get it that they impede the quality of life for a specific business or a specific property. But that has to be brought forward by somebody who has the authority to manage the property. With that, then it becomes an issue of, we can write it's a violation of a judge's orders. It has a little more traction, and we can hopefully find a result from there. I know it's unbelievably frustrating. We will put in the work on our end, but there's not I don't have a turnkey answer to say, hey, we can ban this person from your property, you know, forever. And, you know, I wish I could. You know, I wish we could put a monitor where an invisible field came up and said, hey, you've caused all these problems at town center. You know, you're going to take your business somewhere else, or you're going to have to take your loitering somewhere else. So again, you know, if it's constant problems like that, you know, we have a little more flexibility. Again, I would offer up, even if the people aren't, you know, homeless or transient, you know, my guys they have the ability to have a little more time on their hands to dig into specific situations. So, you know, if there's a specific person that it's currently happening, you know, hopefully, you know, they can get involved and hopefully try to find a little longer term solution.
Has there been anything in the city of Pittsburgh to find housing for these unhoused? You know, some of them, quite a few of them make a living by doing what they're doing, which is causing a lot of unrest. And I totally agree with you regarding giving food. You know, I put out a memo saying to the food outlets that I have, if someone comes and asks for food, please do not give that to them.
Right.
And, you know, the best thing to do is to refer them to an agency that is supposed to, you know, basically take care of this. But the situation being is that we've played this game for a long time, 2 years, 3 years, maybe longer. And so far, I haven't seen anything in the city that would be set up, not an encampment, but somewhere where there would be an area where you could place people to give them the services that they need. Now, in San Francisco, they've done that. They've taken them off the street and put them in various areas that are not being used. Parking lots, I don't know. But within that area there, they could put their tents, and it's supervised. There is an individual there that basically is kind of the watch person for that kind of thing. They come and go as they want, but they need to be in by a certain time, which takes them off of sleeping on public property. I can't tell you how many times security goes through and somebody's sleeping on the property, not with a tent, but just on the ground. So I just don't know if could be some headway made in terms of trying to get an area that these individuals can be treated and so forth, but not an encampment where they go back and they do their drugs and they do their liquor and so forth, but an area that's kind of controlled.
Well, I will tell you that the Motel 6 project, as of currently, just shy of about 30% of the residents there are from Pittsburgh, according to the county numbers. So that is somewhat what you're referring to on that aspect of things. One of the tough problems that we come in contact with there is a population amongst the unhoused residents that they don't necessarily want to work with rules, and they may not be ready in their current life situation to forego substances. We talked to a gentleman today. We actively go through, about a year and a half ago, the city council gave us the longitude. We go through, and when we find able-bodied people that are willing to work, we do everything that we can to facilitate that they come on and they work through our corporation yard as seasonal workers, and that gives them the opportunity to possibly move further so they can start to get back on their feet, that they're employable and so forth. There's some very basic qualifications they have to meet. In fact, one of the gentlemen we were speaking to today, that's what we're trying to get them. We're trying to get them involved in that program through the city to get them back up on their feet. But in the same breath, we got a gentleman who suffers from epilepsy, and I could probably get him housed into a county transitional housing facility, but he has a dog, and the dog is his only friend on this earth, which I understand. I mean, if I was living in a drainage ditch under a tree and my dog was my only person that cared for me and so forth, my only friend, then yeah, I would not want to give up my dog. Well, unfortunately, the programs don't allow pets. So again, I would estimate our homeless outreach officers probably do 80+% social work, trying to case by case work with people, trying to find solutions and trying to work with them to try to get back on their feet. But we have those that are some like you're describing that go into our shopping centers that just don't respect the rights of others. And sometimes law enforcement is the only solution to resolve what is happening. So
Do you have a
For
number?
Sorry.
Do you have a number of
Go
the
ahead,
homeless
Mr. Berger.
people in Pittsburgh?
So it's a little, the county does what they call a point in time count once a year. And what they do is they take a moment in time and they send people out and they count. Unfortunately, we don't always see the best statistics from that because they may look into a ravine and see 3 tents, so they count 3 people. They don't go down, they don't actually dig into it. So that number fluctuates 100, 125 over the past several years. By our estimates on any given time, because it is unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess it depends on which way you look at it, it's a very transient nature population. We have a huge transient population in RVs, trailers, cars that move throughout Eastern Contra Costa County and around. But ultimately, I would probably estimate on any given day, there's roughly 150, maybe 175 people that, under the definition of the county, are unhoused or unsheltered.
I was going to say for the pet rule, it seems like specifically in this case, I know it's not a fully trained service animal because they do have those for individuals with epilepsy, but I mean, as far as making a case for it being an ESA, an emotional support animal, wouldn't the program then have to take an individual that has a prescribed ESA?
I don't know for a fact on that, but the bottom line is unfortunately, animals have to put an animal in a housed condition. He had to hold on to the animal when we talked to him. because the dog is protective of their home. I don't know if that would be a stipulation. And then ultimately they have to want help. You know, there's not a mechanism for somebody who does not want to enter into a program. There is no mechanism in place that I'm aware of through social. We can't make people do something that they don't want to do. And a lot of times that's a very small population. I don't want to characterize that all homeless people want to be homeless, because that's not the case. But there are a certain amount of the population that they're okay living the way that they are. And that's the type of lifestyle. And unfortunately, that lifestyle sometimes doesn't always correspond what people are used to and how we live. You know, it's not the way that accepted in the society to have, you know, trash and to pollute and for waterways and to, you know, use the restroom in public places and so forth like that. So that's the challenge, to get through and help those people kind of get back on track.
Are there any other questions from our panel today?
Is there anything that, Wolfgang, is there anything that you can put out that could be sent to various store owners or tenants that could capsulize what has been said, so at least they have an idea as to that something's being done? Because every time I talk, you know, to someone, whether it be a major, you know, like a Walgreens, or whether it be a smaller tenant, they say, well, I don't think the city of Pittsburgh's doing anything. And I know, you know, we meet here and we talk about it, and you know, the officer has a full-time big job in trying to control this. I think we need to get it out there, and I think we need to let some of the people know, because they're very, very frustrated about this, especially if they've had damage, if they've been shoplifted, or a multitude of things that these, you know, homeless people can do, especially the ones hyped up on drugs. And so
We definitely can do that.
Huh? Can you do that?
I said we definitely could. We definitely could do that. We have done some stuff in the past. The big issue here is that we all know that this is a BFI, right? Big freaking issue, and that there isn't a simple solution. And
No.
the real solution is pain. Everybody has to feel a little bit of pain, right? There's a cost, right? So when there's a cost, there's taxes, there's fees, there's whatever. There's the issue of, is government really the best solution for this, or should it come from the private sector or faith-based community? What role do families play? And, you know, it's so complex that everybody likes to do pass the buck, you know, like Walgreens, for example. I know that they're one of your tenants, and I can imagine the type of conversations they have with you as a landlord. They know that it's a bigger problem than what, you know, City of Pittsburgh could do, right? But I do agree that we could do more to spotlight the work that needs to be done. But at the end of the day, we have to try to figure out, all of us, you know, city, private business, private property owners, what solutions can we create, right? So I'll be the first to publicly admit that the Motel 6 project is the worst location ever, right? It's right at our gateway. It's right by a commercial center. I think it's 2 thumbs down. But is there a place in Pittsburgh that could be a better location? Possibly. I think the county saw an easy opportunity because the governor did his temporary Project Home Key, and they made a deal, and boom, here we go, off to the races. And I wish they would have asked for some local input and insight on that, but it is what it is, right? So we have to get everybody at the table, and that's kind of the point of these newer meetings. Is this is the table. how can we, make some solutions? The police department has given some great ideas, not only today, but in past meetings. How do we get businesses to show up to this table? And how can we as businesses do that? Ms. Berger, being a landlord, you run a very clean operation and definitely make the investment. But there are other landlords in this town that could care less, and they are part of this problem. So we want to, how do we get those landlords at the table to help raise the bar on their properties, right? But I think putting we'll do that. I see Nancy said it, so I already said it. So it's is that we need more politicians at these meetings. I definitely agree, and they are invited, and that's the policymakers are. We need them to be focusing on some of these issues as well. So
If I could add just one last thing, Wolfgang, because I just want to put it out there that this is obviously a very challenging subject to deal with. But if there is a message that you can get out to our business community, is that the police department is 100% committed. We're not going to turn our backs. We may not have the solution to every problem, but we're willing and we want to work with every individual business that's having a problem to try to find a solution, whether it be large or small. So please reach out, communicate with us, and we'll be here to help in any way that we legally can.
Hey, Robert,
absolutely.
Are you working with what was it? Which public storage? Security Public Storage. Have you heard from them recently?
Is that the one on Harbor Court?
Yeah.
It's been a month or two, but I haven't heard anything within the last few days. But I know that they were dealing with an issue, and that's part of because the issue they were having falls upon Caltrans's properties. So we spent a ton of time negotiating with Caltrans, and that was a several-week project, getting the wheels of the state of California to work and move and so forth. So, yeah, hopefully they're not experiencing those same problems again. And if they are, we'll do what we can again to try to help resolve it. So
they were bringing it up to us, but they didn't give us a time frame, so we'll check on that. But that just shows you
if it's the same ones that we're dealing with the irrigation and with the people living underneath the overpass of Highway 4 at Harbor, that was what they were dealing with earlier. So
I think they reported a fire or two being set. So I don't know if that's a new issue or not. But we'll check on them and make sure we route them around. But that just shows you how up on it Pittsburgh PD is. So
we tried, but there's always stuff that we learn every day. So the business community and the community is our number one source of figuring out what's going on and how we respond. I'm happy during COVID, our hands were extremely tied about what we could do. That's been we've been allowed a little more longitude to address some of the blight in some of the larger camps. So we look forward to continuously moving forward and trying to make the community even that much better place to live.
Thank you.
And I just want to say one thing before we go. Officer Simas, I appreciate everything that Pittsburgh Police and yourself are doing. I know it's a thankless job. Anytime we call or our security calls or one of the tenants call, we do get a response. It's not like we hear nothing, but we do get a response. And so I really appreciate that. And I want to thank you for all the work that you've done, because it's like, trying to climb uphill. You go up a little bit and you fall back down again. But as long as we're all working on this problem, we may make some progress along the line, So I want to thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
100% agree. Well, with that, I want to thank again everybody for coming. Please spread the word. We'll be meeting next month on the third Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Please let other businesses know about this so that they can be part of the conversation. And again, tonight at 5 p.m. at John Buckley Square, we are having a face-to-face live in action mixer. No more Zoom mixers. Pretty excited about that. And we are going to be having District Attorney Becton and other members from our staff, because we committed her to being more engaged with our businesses and reaching out and building relationships. So she's going to be there, and we would like to have as many people as possible because it is a team effort. So with that, we'll go ahead and conclude, and thank you for your time. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.